As you can tell, I'm extremely excited to be using my new setup because it's so pretty. Today, I decided to be as Christmassy as possible. You can't really see, but my makeup is matching my outfit. And I also have Christmas socks because in a week is going to be Christmas and I'm extremely excited. Which is why we are here today to recount all of the most disappointing books of 2020. Now hear me out. I'm doing this video for two reasons. One, it's extremely entertaining, I think, to hear people talk about the books that disappointed them the most. And two, I actually haven't given a book 1 star this year. Like, any of my books are 1 star. So these are not the worst books because 1 star means rage. Means I'm so enraged. There's something about that book that really just... And I think it's fun. I'm also doing this video in December and not in January, as I had previously said, because in January I will be doing my favorites of the year, because I think there are some books that could still surprise me in these 2 weeks up to the end of the year, but I don't think many books will disappoint me as much as these books. Some of them are mangas, some of them are books, some of them are audiobooks. So let's get started. Let's start with a book that I am on the cusp of a DNF in this, because this is putting me in such a reading slump and it's so sloppily done, but I want to finish it. So it's an honorable mention. This is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I talk about this book so much on my channel because every video I'm like, I'm reading this, I'm still reading this. This is a sci-fi done by someone who doesn't know anything about science. And this is my review. So I'm going to finish this because I don't like DNFing books. I like to torture myself like that. And also it's fun to tab all the ridiculous things that this book is bringing to my life. Now, these books are not in a particular order. They are all 2-star books. The first one is a recent one and also a wildly popular book on BookTube, and it's so well beloved. And I'm kind of scared to say this name, but it's The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So I listened to this on audiobook and the narrator was fantastic. And props to this book because it's a romance book, it's an adult romance, I think. And I didn't hate the protagonist. I usually hate them and I love the love story or vice versa, but here I really like the protagonist because she loved her family, she was very career oriented as I am. She was so determined and she was also sometimes clever, which I really appreciate in characters in books. The love interest was fun. There were some things like, okay, let's break it down because I've written a Goodreads review which really encapsulate my feelings. Let's split this book into thirds. First third was great. I was really liking the banter between the two characters. Second third, I was like, what is happening? Why is everything going downhill? What is going on? Something happens and it feels so rushed, so out of place, and then from there it's all downhill because we have gone the high school teen movie speech at the end of the prom route, and it's exactly what the protagonist has done, and the romance feels half-baked. The chemistry for me was not really there. A half-baked romance, that's how I'm going to describe it. Another very well beloved book, and it's a sapphic romance, which pains me times 10 because I am always on the hunt for sapphic romances. The book in question is the Fallen in Love Montage by Sarah Smith. This was suggested to me by various booktubers as the perfect cutesy but also kind of deep young adult sapphic romance. As you can see, I had a physical copy of this book and now I don't. I didn't unhaul this book, I just lent it. It was mostly a present because I don't like that book, to one of my friends who is a lesbian, who I think will like this book a lot more than me because we have very different tastes. In the synopsis, it says that there is a character who loves romantic movies like rom-coms, and another character who really hates them, and so they think to have a falling in love montage just for a summer and then to go off, no strings attached at the end of summer. And I thought that this is so fun. This is exactly what I love. The book is about everything aside from death. So there is a fall in love montage in which the two main characters go on dates and do fun stuff, but it's such a minimal part of the book and so overlooked. Characters appear and never again. They bring up things and then never again. It's more about the family of the main character. Her mother has early dementia. She is struggling with that. Her parents are splitting up and her father has a new girlfriend and she has recently broke up with her girlfriend. So it's a lot of that. Everything is so rushed. The time span of this book is a summer and you feel like it's 2 days. So it was really rushed. If the author had taken maybe more of a time to explain everything that happened and maybe taken some things out of the story, maybe some part of the montage that weren't really needed, I think this could have been such a great romance. The chemistry was also not there at all for me, but one thing that I liked was how it resolved at the end. The ending, I feel like it was really realistic, which I really liked. However, the true ending, like the final chapter, why are we ending on half a phrase? We are ending on two people talking, and you feel like there should be at least another page, and then there's not. And you're like, you're in the middle of a conversation. Why is this stopping right there? Is it because I'm not an English native speaker and I don't understand social cues like that in English? Is it because of that? I am thoroughly confused. We are going to talk about an Italian book by an Italian author. It was the winner of a really big prize here in Italy and it's called Il Premio Strega. So I was very excited. The cover is beautiful and I have the physical book. So this is Tutto chiede salvezza by Daniele Mencarelli. The title roughly translates to Everything asks for salvation. Or everything requires salvation. So we are following a guy who struggles with an undiagnosed mental illness in the 80s in Italy, and we are in the south of Italy. This is very important. He gets into what we call the TSO, Trattamento Sanitario Obbligatorio, so an obligatory sanitary treatment. So you get inside the hospital for, I think it is 10 days, 7 days, 10 days, so they can diagnose you and then you can go back out with a diagnosis and the right medicine that you have to take, the right medication. But we are in a time where diagnoses were really hard to get correctly and people didn't really care about mental illnesses. And also in the south of Italy, like some sanitary buildings were not populated by the best people. Let's tell it like that. So he meets the other patients which all have different problems. Okay, so I've written a Goodreads review again for this book, which I think is really topical because this book feels like reading nothing. It gives you a sense of nothing and not a sense of nothingness. The purpose of some books, it leaves you with a sense of void and you're like, oh my god. No, this was nothing. You read it and it's like watching paint dry. It's not boring, but it's like nothing, which is worse because boring books or like enraging bad books are better than nothing books. This was just like so forgettable, so nothing. It gives you nothing. It lives in nothing. This feels like the author wanted to write something so profound, but he doesn't know where his thoughts are going. So he writes these beautiful sentences that go nowhere. Because there's no substance to this book. Nothing gets resolved, there is no conclusion, there is no middle, there's no beginning. Why? Alas. Another book that I greatly anticipated, I pre-ordered this book because I am that bitch. Like, I am that stupid bitch. Because it talked about two of my favorite things, LGBTQIA+ themes. And then it talks about space, but in particular it talks about astronauts and astronaut families. So the behind the scenes of an astronaut launch, which is so fascinating. And it's The Gravity of Us by Phil Stumper. You probably guessed it. This, I think, had the opposite problem of the Fallen in Love montage, in which there was so much and then at the end nothing got resolved. Here, there is the right amount of things that is going on. I didn't like the writing. I feel like between sentences there were entire paragraphs that should have been there and they were not. So someone cut this book up. It should have been twice the size or written better. So I think there's room for improvement on the writing part, but this was not it. And also I didn't like the main character. He was kind of irritating. Can I say that? We also learn so little of the main love interest, and this could be kind of an insta love, which I've seen some discord on Twitter in which people say, why are you hating on insta love when it happens so often? And I'm not hating on insta love per se, because sometimes you see a person and you're like, that person is so interesting, so attractive, but it's a crush. It's not love. It's not an insta crush. Insta crushes are fine. Insta love, however, it's not. You cannot sell me a romance that it's supposed to be love and deep feelings when it's instant. So this is my problem with this book. There were so many great things about this, but alas, the space exploration behind the scenes thing that I was so interested in was kind of like, it felt like kind of an afterthought, because it's such a complex theme to talk about, so you have to really explore it well. It's not like your typical YA romance, but it felt like it, and so I was very disappointed. Now we're talking about the manga that I really wanted to talk about, because I have never read the manga before this year that I hated. And this is because I am really, really easily entertained, especially if I not only have words, but also drawings. So if the story is whack, but the drawings are pretty, I'm okay with that. 3 stars, you're okay. But this time I was not. And this manga is called Fantasma, which in Italian means ghost. Volume 1 and 2 by Yuji Kaku. So, the drawings were fine, nothing special, we couldn't save the story, and we talk about the Italian mafia. If you know me, which you probably don't because I haven't talked about Italian mafia themes here on this channel, but I'm really, really picky when you talk about the Italian mafia, because it's real here. People really do die because of the Italian mafia. There is such a system of corruption here that every region really is scared of, especially if you are from more of a southern region. My family from my dad's side comes from Sicily, and there were so many problems when it comes to the Italian mafia with my dad's side of the family, so I'm really sensitive about this topic. This manga talks about the Italian mafia, but in a manga twisty sort of way, which could have been fun. It was so rushed, nonsensical, nothing made sense. It was so bad, so bad. The drawings are the only thing that is making me not want to give it a 1-star review, but we're on the edge of giving it. So the last 2 books I'm going to be very speedy about for 2 different reasons, depending on the book. The first one is The Price of the Phoenix by Sondra Marshak and M. Calbrith. This is a very old Star Trek book, so we're talking about Star Trek, and this is why I'm going to be very speedy, because I have a project with all my Star Trek books that is going to be released in January, so please be on the lookout for that. These are, don't be deceived, these are all the things that I liked, which can seem like a lot. This is a very thin book, but the writing is very, very dense, so it's actually a lot longer than you might think. This is pure nonsense. If you ever had an acid trip and then wrote a book and made it really homoerotic about space, this is probably it. I cannot give you a synopsis for this book because it was so nonsensical. Pacing was horrendous. It was so incredibly slow. And I love slow books. But then when it comes to the action, it raced through the action because I don't think any of the authors really knew how to write that. And these are the things that I like because these are all the interactions with the original characters from the original series TV show, which were marvelously done, but everything else was a nightmare. A true nightmare. And the last book that I want to talk about, I've talked about at length, so you can watch my anti-TBR book tag and also my vlog in which I read this book, and it's the Behemoth, that it's Never Night by J. Christoph. I still have this copy because it's very beautiful. It's a hardback, so it cost me a ton, and it has sprayed edges, so it's pretty on my shelves. There are multiple reasons for which I didn't like this book. The writing was okay. The footnotes were the best part of the book. But again, as I said in my anti-TBR book tag, the notes were kind of a cop-out to not to do good world building. And then the school aspect, which was what drawn me to this book, was done so poorly. Like the lessons were not interesting, and some things that happened, I was like, what? And then the sex scenes were awful. They were awful. They were awful. Talking about all of these books, it's kind of liberating. So I'm going to push out all my negative energy into the world to be absorbed and start 2021 in the most positive way that I can. This is a fun video because talking about what I don't like in books makes me think about everything in turn that I like, and it makes me a better reviewer, I think, to know what I like and what I don't, and explain with words in a language which is not mine. If you go in my description, you'll find some very important links, especially for the Philippines right now. They're going through a very big crisis because of the typhoons. Everything that you can donate, share, everything can help. So please check it out. I also have some socials if you want to connect with me. I have a Twitter in which I always respond to messages, and I also have a Goodreads in which you can see all the books that I read. I also have an Amazon wishlist. You can really ignore the part of it being a wishlist, and you can just see which books I'm probably going to read next year. So if you want to know that, I think I'll see you in the next video, which will probably be still this year, but I don't know. So if it's in the next year, happy 2021. Let's pray for the best. Okay, see you in the next video. Goodbye.